You're gonna have to watch now. You're gonna have to probably break them up.
I know. I don't know. There you go. Be standing room only.
That's a lot of pressure.
No, it's great. Public.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us this evening for the 2023
Yeah, it's on.
City of Garden City City Commission Forum hosted by the Garden City Area Chamber of Commerce and the Chamber Government Affairs Committee. We would like to thank the City of Garden City for hosting us this evening and providing technical support. I am Laura Blake Boers, and I currently serve as the chair of the Chamber Government Affairs Committee and will serve as the moderator for tonight's event. Joining me to help keep track of time is Dr. Steve Carlin, Vice Chair of the Chamber Government Affairs Committee. Tonight, we welcome the following candidates vying for a seat on the City Commission: Bryce Landgraf, Deb Euler, Roy Cessna, Shannon Dick, and Tom Nguyen. Candidates, thank you for joining us this evening. The process for tonight's forum will begin with each candidate providing a 1-minute opening statement, followed by a question and answer session, and will conclude with a 1-minute closing statement. Each candidate will be allowed 90 seconds to respond to each question. This is a closed question forum. No rebuttal questions or answers will be permitted. Our candidate order for tonight's forum was randomly selected. Without further delay, we will begin with the 1-minute opening statements, starting with Bryce.
Good evening. I am Bryce Landgraf. I'm an in-house counsel for an oil and gas company here in Garden City called American Warrior, Inc. I have grown up my entire life either in or around Garden City, except for when I went off to Washburn to get both my undergraduate and my law degree. Growing up in Garden City, I've learned two key values which were instilled upon me from both my parents and my grandparents while working on both their feedlot and their family farm. Those two key values are honesty and hard work. If I am elected city commissioner, I plan to champion both of those two values for you in my fight for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom.
Good evening. I'd first like to express my deepest gratitude for the Chamber of Commerce for extending this privilege up to me. I am so lucky to be up here. Thank you to the Lord for his grace, and thank you to my friends and family for being here to support me. I'm Tom Nguyen, and I am the person I am today because of the amazing people in our community, people like you. When my family and I first immigrated here to Vietnam, we were immediately showered by so much love and support. I'm running for City Commission because I love Garden City and because I want to give back to a community that has given so much to me and my family. This summer I led 60 high school students in Southwest Kansas where we served 6,000 community service hours. And within here, we realized the importance of my generation, the next generation, serving the community that they live in. I am currently the creative director at St. Mary's Church, where we are embarking on a $12 million project, and I also substitute for our district. Thank you.
Deb.
Well, good evening. I'd also like to thank the Chamber for holding this forum and giving us an opportunity to speak to our electorate, to speak to the citizens of Garden City. I have proudly served Garden City as a commissioner for the past 4 years, and this last year I have had the additional honor of serving as your mayor. To say it's been an interesting 4 years would be an understatement. We have done a lot of different projects, made a lot of relationships, and when I think about all of the things that we've accomplished as a city commission over the last 4 years, it's a very big source of pride. One of the biggest things was, of course, our airport terminal, passing that, 30-cent sales tax for that to be able to complete. And the first phase of that terminal is open and completed. And most of all, I'm just proud to say that when you've emailed, I've responded. When you call me, I listen. I will continue to do that if I'm elected going forward as your city commissioner. Thank you.
Shannon.
All right. Well, thanks again to the Chamber. I'm Shannon Dick. I grew up here in Garden City. Moved back here 12 years ago after graduating from K-State, moved down to Tulsa. I have 3 kids and a great wife, and I've been on the City Commission for the last 4 years. My base platform for the city is we're doing a really good job in Garden City. Let's just keep it up and don't mess up things along the way. And one thing I'd like to acknowledge in this time is when we talk about doing a good job, the city staff is the ones that really do the day-to-day job. So when we're talking about the people that really deserve praise, it's them. One of my main points is that we protect home rule, which is the ability for our city to govern ourselves instead of having people from Topeka. Some great things that's been going on since I've been commissioner, like Commissioner Euler says, we have a new terminal. We have the big pool reconstruction with 3 times the amount of kids that go to the big pool now. We have $1 billion in annual sales tax. We're the fastest growing community in Kansas, and we have been able to keep our mill rate flat for the last 10 years.
Roy.
Okay. Hi, I'm Roy Sessna. I'm the Public Information Coordinator for Garden City Public Schools. I've served on the City Commission for the last 12 years, been mayor 3 times in our community. And my family is really important to me, and Garden City has been a great community where my wife and I, along with our 2 sons, have called home. I really want to thank them, my wife and my family, and my sons for giving their time, their valuable time for me to serve on this commission. I want Garden City to be a place where my kids want to stay and want to live and work and hopefully one day raise a family like I have here. I'm asking for your vote to help our community to continue to grow and become the regional hub of Western Kansas and make us a destination location in retail, industry, as well as transportation and activities for the whole family to enjoy. Thank you.
We'll now transition to the question and answer section. If you need the question repeated, please just let me know and we will repeat it. Tom, we will begin with you. Why did you decide to be a candidate for the commission and why should voters elect you?
I love this question. I first learned to serve from my parents. Growing up as an immigrant child who was the only one who spoke English in your family, you take up a lot of responsibilities that most traditional kids don't. At the age of 6, I translated for our family to get our first car. At the age of 10, I translated for our first mortgage, for our house. And I realized that my role and my calling is to be a public servant. That extended further into high school where I contributed to 1,000 community service hours. And then my experience, my college experience at St. Joseph's University in New York has pushed me to be a social activist and someone who learns to love to give. That has translated to living here in Garden City. I love to serve the people who live here because you all are so wonderful. And now I want to give on the greatest way possible on the City Commission. My experience this past campaign has been built on meeting where people are. We are continuing to grow together. That is our goal. I have spent countless hours taking a pulse of our community and the needs in which why we need a City Commission is to serve you. Thank you.
Before we go on, if anyone who's in the audience could please silence or turn off your cell phones, we would appreciate it. Deb.
So I have the experience, I've served on the City Commission for 4 years, and in that time I've had the ability to make the relationships, not just at the local level with city staff who, of course, do a remarkable job on our behalf. They really do deserve a lot of the credit that Commissioner Dick was talking about. But at the state level, you know, with our state representatives, our state senators, and at the national level, to be able to have those conversations so that when things like, you know, protecting home rule become an issue, we can have that conversation with them about why a decision that was made can affect us here locally and why that really isn't in the best interest of protecting that home rule. I've also served on quite a few different boards throughout the community that have taught me about, my civic obligation, have allowed me to give back to the community. And I agree with Tom that giving back to Garden City is probably one of the greatest things that you can do as a city commissioner, because it's at that ultimate level of being able to listen to what people are telling you, to be able to work on their behalf and to be able to do things that you wouldn't normally be able to do. And it's been a real honor, and I would also really like to see some of the projects that we're working on come to fruition and have the opportunity to really celebrate some of those accomplishments as well. Thank you.
Shannon.
All right, so I'm not a politician. I'm a statistician, which means I like data, and I like screens, and I like spreadsheets. So the reason I got involved with local politics was I was attending a lot of the meetings, the goal-setting retreats, the kind of things that the City Commission was doing as part of my job and as part of just being involved with the city. And we had a commissioner that had to step down, and the city asked if anybody wanted to get appointed to that. So I put my name in the hat because I was going. There was really other people from the public going to these meetings. So for some reason, they picked me. So I became a city commissioner, and when they asked if I'd run in the next election when it came up, I said sure, even though that's not me. I don't like doing the handshaking and all that stuff. But I did run, and I got elected. So I got a 4-year term, and during that I was mayor for one of those years. So that's how I kind of got involved in this. I'm totally not a person that likes doing politics. So why am I running again? Really, it's because I want Garden City to keep on growing the way we have been doing. Not just in the last 5 years, the last 30 years, the last 50 years. I want to keep seeing Garden City be the way it is. Let's just keep doing what we're doing. So why elect me? I'm a champion of Garden City. I'm 100% person that loves Garden City, and I want the best for Garden City and for all its people. I also want the best for Western Kansas, which overlaps a lot with the needs of Garden City. And then a lot of the things that I do is data-driven. Because of my stats background, I really like numbers, and I like looking at what the underlying data is and keeping emotions out of those kind of decisions.
Roy.
Yes, thank you for the question. I've served on the commission, like I told you earlier, for 12 years. People have been asking me if I'm running again, and I kind of question myself if I'm going to run again. And usually people are asking me, well, we would like you to run again, so because we'll vote for you. And I'm like, okay, because you're doing such a good job. So that's the reason why I'm running. I really started off running for the commission because I've served on a number of advisory boards, as well as the CIP process in the community. And I thought it was just the next logical step in serving our community. Serving over the last 12 years, really, Garden City has really transformed during my term on the commission, from becoming one of a place like Garden or Dodge or Liberal. We've really become the regional hub of Western Kansas, and becoming more so with the various projects that we've got completed, and projects that we've got started, and projects that we've got that we're planning for the future. So that's why I'm running again, to hopefully complete those projects and keep Garden City destination location for Western Kansas. Thank you.
Bryce.
Since graduating law school and coming back to Garden City, I've been keeping up with city commission meetings and also their agendas. I think there's been years since there's been an agenda I haven't read and a commission meeting I haven't watched online. And while watching those and reading the agendas and speaking with members of our community, there's 3 key issues that constantly come up. 1, property taxes. I believe property taxes need to be lowered in Garden City. Since 2019, we've had a 32.3% increase in valuations. We've had a 19% increase in the mill levy for the city alone. And in just this year alone, valuations are going up 11.7%. This is hard on Garden City communities. It's hard on people who want to come to Garden City to get a job, buy a house, and live the American dream. I've had bankers come up to me and talk to me and say, yes, property taxes are too high and they're stopping people from coming to Garden City because they can't afford a home loan and they can't afford property taxes. Along with that, I want to rein back spending and bring what I call common sense spending. And finally, I want to ensure that the citizens of Garden City's voices are heard. Through having these people talk to me about their problems with property taxes and with spending, it has become apparent to me that their voices do not feel like they are heard, and I want to champion those values.
Deb, the next question, we'll start with you. What can you tell us about the city's financial position, and what are your views on the city's financial management practices?
I would say that we have some of the best financial management practices that a municipality can have. As a matter of fact, over the years, our financial profile, we win awards because of the way we manage our finances. We have very skilled staff. Our finance director he's very good at what he does and making sure that as a commission we understand the budget, we understand what those numbers mean, to make sure that when he presents the budget to us, I mean, we go line by line by line through that budget and we understand just about everything that we can, and we have an opportunity to ask questions. Whenever we look at selling bonds or we look at, our GEO bonds, we have the highest rating that Moody can offer. And that all talks about financial responsibility, financial management, and the fact that over the last 4 years, we've been able to keep our mill levy flat. Has proved to be something that, because we're able to keep that mill levy flat but still continue to grow our city, I think that says a lot for how we manage our finances. And I think we do a very good job as a commission of making sure that we're informed and that we are responsible with spending and with debt. Thank you.
Shannon.
All right, well, this might start to sound the same. We're doing a really good job with our financial position with our budget, and a lot of that does go to our city staff. Jared does an amazing job. Took over from an award-winning person before that, and has really put us into a good position where we make sure that we are spending at a rate that we can sustain and that is responsible. One thing that we need to remember as a community and as a position as a regional hub is that a large portion of our income from our area is coming through sales tax and not through property tax. And the more we can build that sales tax, the more relief we have on that property tax. And like Mayor Euler said, we've been able to keep that mill rate flat, which is the portion of the sales tax or the property tax that we can control as a city commission. So we've been able to keep that rate flat over the last 4 years. And then also, how are we doing it in reporting? So we go through many auditing processes. We use Lewis, Hooper, and Dick, and we always do very well through that whole thing. If there's any problems that we get them adjusted right away, and there's been no major issues. So overall, our finances has been doing pretty well, especially when we talk about a city our size that's in a remote location that isn't a vacation spot or anything like that. So for the position that we are in Kansas, we're doing a very good job.
Right.
How did I know you were going to ask me? It's kind of like, I hate to say ditto, but we really do have an outstanding staff that does a great job. They're award-winning staff. My years on the City Commission, and I know before that they were winning the Service Excellence in Finance Award. It's a very prestigious national award. It's a very hard award to get. We also use the highest standards in accounting practices for our commission. Like Mayor Euler said, we start in April and go literally line by line in our budget to set our budget. We work with staff on getting that budget set. We can go. We do have a flat mill levy rate. We've had that for the last 10 years that I know of, and actually it's actually gone down by half a mil over that 10-year period. We do use sales tax because it's very important to us. Actually, the general operating budget, actually we're using 76.4% of our general operating budget comes from sales tax, and that's actually an increase from last year where it was 74.2%. So the more sales tax that we generate, that helps to lower and keep the mill levy flat in our community. Thank you.
Bryce.
I agree that on sales tax, we are doing a great job. This is a huge part of the budget and needs to stay as it is to be able to help fund the city. There are issues, as I said before, with property taxes, with these rising valuations that hurt the people of Garden City. And with that, there are certain issues in regards to spending, I believe, as well. Some of these issues, for example, is a $73,400 expenditure for a feasibility study on an ice hockey rink to bring to Garden City ice hockey rink and a rec center. I think that sort of spending needs to be reined back in. If this is something that the community thinks needs to be brought into Garden City, I think that is something that is perfect for private enterprise to bring to Garden City. Thank you.
Tom.
No.
There you go.
So every year, the city comes out with a financial profile, and when I reviewed the profile, our community is doing such a fantastic job of being transparent and very detailed in what we're doing. We also received the budget, which we all can view, and through that budget, if you go line by line, we are doing our very best to ensure that the services in our town are maintained. Additionally, the city only can do so much with property value, right? The county is the one that decides the valuation. So where we are with mill levy is as best as we can to ensure that our property value is as best as we can to make sure we have the finances available. Secondly, we spend a lot of money to ensure that the future of Garden City is bright. That involves feasibility studies, that because we are in dire need of some sort of gathering place, a venue for our community. And to do something like that, we have to spend the money. We have to spend the money because that's part of growing pains. We can't grow if we don't invest. And our community is doing such a fantastic job. I'm so grateful for how the city manager, Matt Allen, does well, and how Jared Coleman has been doing such a fantastic job. Thank you.
Shannon, next question will begin with you. What do you see as the city essentially getting right, and what areas need improvement?
So that's a very broad thing. So what do we get right? I mean, by and large, we're getting things right. I'm going to sound like a broken record. I'm sorry, this is going to be everything. Our staff does a great job. And when we're talking about that, when we're talking about what our utility guys do in our parks and rec and all those things, they really are making decisions based on what is best for Garden City. So we do a really good job on that case. We also do a really good job at leading ourselves and Western Kansas as a whole. So we have a group called Southwest Kansas Coalition. That's a group of Garden City, Dacia, and Liberal. We get together, come up with a legislative agenda to have a platform to talk to Topeka. And so we as a city are doing a really good job in leading that and making sure we take care of the issues that we need to work on. Some of the things that we need to work on specifically is housing. We are very short in housing. Specifically, we're about 4,000 units short, and that's because that's how many jobs are available, but we don't have the people to fill them. So we need to work on housing. We need to work on better immigration offices and better immigration services. We need to keep on working on water. We are really far along the process of being water neutral or water positive as a city, which is one of those things that as long as we have water, we can keep on growing. So we work on that. We need to work on expanding our industrial capacity. And then finally, improving quality of our life. And like Tom said, a lot of that does have to go into having to invest in ourselves. And then investing means we can keep on growing.
Roy.
Kind of going off of what Shannon said, we are kind of a regional powerhouse in Western Kansas because we are one of the largest communities, but we have a top-notch staff and a staff that's second to none that does an outstanding job for our community. But it's building partnerships throughout Western Kansas and building those relationships to help not only Garden City grow and become a better place, but all of Western Kansas to grow. There are issues that we need to focus on, and as a commission, we have a goal-setting retreat that we focus on. We get information from the capital improvement process, and through our goal-setting retreat, we come up with a number of goals that we set for our staff to meet to help our community grow. And through those goals, our community over the last 10 years has done an outstanding job in becoming that regional hub of Western Kansas. And one of the biggest goals that we have right now is housing. And housing is really important because it'll help with reducing the property taxes that we have, because we add more housing units that'll help with the situation we're in right now. And he's holding up the sign, so I'll stop.
Bryce.
Yes, so I think there are 3 things that Garden City is doing really great right now. One of these is our staff. I think our staff does a tremendous job, not just from the top at city manager, but also down to our police department. It is a terrific police department. They serve this city wonderfully. They do so while understaffed, and they do a tremendous job. I also think that our utilities as well do a tremendous job making sure that we have all of our basic needs. Our electricity, our sewage system does a tremendous job, and then also our water system as well. We have the water treatment facility that is great because water is a huge need in this area. I think many of the farmers here know that the Ogallala is shrinking, and so water is an issue, and so having stuff like this to get ahead of that issue is incredibly important. There's issues that I do have with the city. One of them is housing. As Shannon talked about before, we need 4,000 houses by 2030, and we are well short on that goal. I think last I heard we are only about 800 of those units. We need more. Also, we need, as I talked about before, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but property tax. Property tax is incredibly important for this community. There's people who look to come to this community and can't because of how high those property taxes are. And finally, I think we need to be better as a city commission, going out to the public and speaking with them and communicating with them, not expecting them to come to us.
Tom.
The first thing that our city does such a great job is trusting the experts. We hire very important people who do such an amazing job and have a wealth of knowledge. Secondly, our city infrastructure plan, so our CIP, takes a lot of input from our community. And I've lived in Massachusetts and New York, and those places, you never have a chance to really tell them what you want in your city, the same way we do here. Next, we have the extensive planning. Every year, they come out with a comprehensive plan that the public can view, the plans for the future, plans for the next 10 years of our community. Garden City also has a wealth of programs that are available to us. Tree rebates. This week, we're opening up with our fall cleaning. But however, there's a lack of communication because my family planted 2 trees this summer, and I wish I knew about the tree rebate program. So there is, and secondly, as you notice, maybe in the city commission as well, Garden City is a melting pot, but sometimes that melting pot is not stirred very well. So we ought to include more voices, especially the young voices and the diverse voices that represent our whole entire community. Thank you.
Deb.
I think the thing that we get right is that we're a forward-thinking staff and commission. And when I say forward-thinking, I don't mean just focusing when we work on a budget for just this year, but looking ahead 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road. We had a pre-meeting a few meetings back where our Director of Public Works talked about our need for expanding our electrical capacity to make sure that that we meet that need going forward with all of the electrical needs that'll happen with more electric cars and with some of the development that is planned with industry and with retail and housing, making sure that we have that infrastructure in place so that in 2030, when we do meet those housing goals, that we have all of the things that we need so that we can ensure that it will be a successful transition into having those 4,000 households. Things that I think need to be improved, and we actually had a pre-meeting about it today, and that was about our water inflow and infiltration, and making sure that those streets and neighborhoods that are having trouble with sewage backing up into their homes, that we have a plan that we can put in place for them to make sure that as a city, we're looking at that holistically so that we can plan for the future there, so that we can give some relief to those homeowners, but then also so that as a city, we have a plan going forward to how we can treat that. Thank you.
Roy, we'll start the next question with you.
Okay.
Are there services the city provides that you believe should be eliminated or services that should be added?
That's a question that I've had asked every candidate forum. You know, when we go through our budgeting process, there are areas that we look at not implementing because of where our budget's at. You know, as our community continues to grow, it's always hard to try to cut services in a growing community. It would be different if our community wasn't growing. But as our community continues to grow and expand, we have to add services to meet the needs of our residents as our community continues to grow. There are areas that we have not implemented certain programs as well as services because we have a tight budget, but sometimes you kick that can down the road and it makes it harder for us to implement those things when they are needed. But that's where the hard decisions come in as a city commissioner when that happens. But again, it's trying to keep a balanced budget and a budget that keeps our mill levy flat and keeps our community growing like it has over the last 10 years. Thank you.
Bryce.
So I think it's important as well that we keep looking at the budget to look at services and to see, okay, what does need to be added, what does need to be eliminated as well. I think it's important that we keep communicating with our staff and rely on their expertise to see what they think in regards to those as well. I think that's where it's important to rely on our city manager, Matt Allen, to rely on other of the deputy city managers as well, and rely on their expertise in these regards. And I think it's just important to make sure that we keep services as low as possible with spending, so in order to keep, in order to help our community with regards to the taxes as well. Thank you.
Tom.
I don't think right now there are any services that should be removed. We do such a great job of looking at the budget to ensure that the services that we have are first necessary and viable to be sponsored. Services to be added. The first is an advisory board recruitment. We have so many advisory boards with a lot of open positions because our community is not aware of them. The question is why? Why are we not aware of them? So then we ought to have a program in which we get input from our community of how to better communicate with other diverse backgrounds and other languages. There are over 30 languages in our school district, but the way language work is very different for every single country. Lastly, I just want to say that our community does a fantastic job of offering services that are useful and necessary. Thank you.
Deb.
So our number one goal for the city is to have 4,000 housing units by 2030. And if we're going to make that a reality, and if we're going to have that happen, we really need to look at the big picture. You know, that's going to require an increase in firemen, in police, in making sure that the infrastructure is in place, sewer, water, gas, making sure that we have the relationships with our school district, because that's probably going to require more schools, and making sure that all of those things are in place, you know, making sure that we have, you know, equipment so that when people come and do trash collection, that we have things that work. You know, thinking about having all of those housing units, that's kind of a big responsibility. And so in thinking about what we can eliminate, it's hard for me to think about that because we're pretty lean as it is. I mean, a lot of times when we're doing our budget, there's a number that we need to get down to. Things get eliminated. It might be positions, it might be programs. You know, projects that didn't get done, if we, after a while, you have to do those projects, and sometimes, you've added another $1 million onto that project, especially if it's a road project. As far as what to add, I would like to see more mental health training and mental health first aid across the board in all of our departments, because as our community grows, so do some of the issues that we have in our community. And I think giving our resources to those that need it, I think it's important.
Shannon?
All right, well, I think I'm going to be summarizing what everybody else has said here. But a lot of it is, we're already at a size of the city that we are. We already really have a lot of the services covered. It's like, I think what everybody else is saying is there's a ramping up or ramping down depending on the demand on those. Like I said, if we're growing, we're going to need a lot more room in there. Like our airport, we added a lot more staff at the airport so we could have the bigger planes come in and all the things that come along with having a bigger airport. And there's some examples of eliminating positions, like we contract out our city engineer instead of having a city engineer. So those kind of things are really managed inside through the city manager and down. So it's not a day-to-day thing that the city commission does. But like we said, our job, one of our jobs, is to make sure that we keep everything running on a budget and making sure that we are getting the best value for those services. And when there's a question about should we go with plan A or plan B, to really weigh what's going to get the best result for either our staff or our community, and see if that aligns with the needs of our community. So again, there isn't anything specifically that I would add or eliminate. Those things just kind of come up as they come up along the process. So.
Bryce, we'll start the next question with you. Describe what your process will be to determine how you will vote on matters before the commission and how you will approach controversial and complicated issues.
Yes, so I think one of the most important things to do here is to first talk with staff. Staff are experts on these issues, and I would be completely just remiss if I didn't discuss with them, because I'm not an expert in electricity. I'm not an expert in sewage. I'm not an expert in water. So it's important that I speak with them. And it's also important that I follow up with them as well to make sure this information or any questions I have after diving into this information get resolved as well. Also, to me, one of the most important things is my religion. So I also believe praying on this is important as well. I believe that's very important for those of us who believe. And I also believe it's important for me to do my own research as well, to look into these different issues, make sure it's being taken care of, and to also go out to the community and ask the community, what do you think in regards to these issues as well? What do you think needs to be done? Do you think this is needed in our community? Because if it's a project they think isn't needed, then why are we spending money on it? And if it is an issue where they think, hey, this is very important, this is something this community needs, then I believe it's something we should add. Thank you.
Tom?
Research, research, research. What does that entail? First and foremost is by asking questions. I am not afraid to ask questions, particularly questions to the answers I don't have. Who do we ask them? We ask our city staff, not just at the top of the food chain, but also at the bottom. Our journeymen have an equal input as our city manager. Next, we ought to ask the implications in our community. How does this affect the person on the west side of town? How does this affect the person on the east side of town? In terms of controversial issues, the strength of the moral compass of a city commission dictates the structure of the community. We ought to be absolute moralists, meaning there has to be clear truths that we abide by, not just by what our feelings are, but by what the facts are. Say we approach a controversial issue in which it's the right thing to do, but it's not accepted well by our community. We ought to explain to them our logical reasoning, because once our community sees the reason in which we did something clearly, they will come and support it with us. Thank you.
Deb?
So whenever we get the commission packet, obviously the first thing you do is you look at it, and the staff do an amazing job of providing a lot of background information. Sometimes those city commission packets are 500 pages long, depending on what's on the agenda. And so you have an opportunity to do a lot of research just by reading the packet and getting a kind of a feel for it. And of course, asking the staff, asking the questions to just, to understand some of the issues and some of those things, in that law of unintended consequences, what could happen if we do this, if we do that, if we don't do it, if we wait. But really going out and talking to the community as well. I have the great fortune, I work for a nonprofit that represents the entire community. And a lot of times we give a voice to those who don't have a voice. And so by getting different opinions from people, not just a diversity of opinions, but also looking at socioeconomic status, talking to people, and a lot of times they don't even know that I'm on the city commission. I might just ask them a question just to get their feel for it and to find out what they're thinking. And so a lot of thought goes into making those decisions. I tend to be a reflective thinker, and so I do a lot of research. I talk to people, and I make my decision based on evidence, based on information, and at the end of the day, when it comes to a vote, making sure that I make the best informed decision that I can.
Shannon.
So yeah, like the mayor said, you get that packet and it's a doozy on Friday evening. So pull up a nice cup of tea and read some packet, and then also understand what's going on with those. It's really important to trust the staff and to trust the opinions that we have of our experts. So that's a big deal. And then also do your own research, like you said. And then finally, if there are some questions going into those, what's really nice about our city staff is everybody is open for questions. So you really can go, and if you need any clarification or what's the background here, or why is this recommendation this way versus this way, they're really open to really discussing everything, and even saying some pro sides on even if against like the staff recommends something, but if you say what would be some arguments on the other side, they're really good at bringing both sides of the story. One thing that we need to talk about, or just keep in mind when we're as a commissioner, is that big decisions aren't necessarily the same thing as tough decisions. There's a lot of big decisions that we do that it's really easy, and it just comes to a logical conclusion. I mean, we do the research, what's the right decision, and it's a big decision for our community. The tough decisions are the ones like, what do we do about peacocks? I mean, where there's no clear right or wrong. Do we allow peacocks in this city, or do you not allow peacocks in the city? Because both answers are right. And so how do you go about that? You talk to people, you look, see what other cities have done, you talk to people that are concerned, and see what would be the best case for the city.
Roy.
So, kind of going with the other commissioners, you go through your packet of information. The city staff does an outstanding job of putting together a memo of what the issue is, the background information on that issue. They give you their thought process of what they're thinking, but then they give you all of that, the additional information that you read through. So yeah, those packets are pretty big. Also, it was mentioned earlier, I use the advisory boards as well. They do a lot of the heavy lifting for us and make a lot of decisions. And just like today, we made a decision. The airport advisory board updated the hangar rent and brought that before us, and we approved that. Pre-meeting information like we had today, that gives you a lot of in-depth information on certain big topics that we need to make decisions on. That gives us a lot of good information before we do make a big decision. And it doesn't always need to be a 5-0 vote. I've made a lot of no votes in my time on the commission, and I use a lot of common sense too, and I get a lot of input from people in the community on issues that are big in the community, and I take that and I use that to make my voice heard and their voices heard on the commission. Thank you.
Tom, we'll start with you on this next question. And I know we've kind of hit on this a little bit, but the current City Commission and the Chamber of Commerce have identified housing as a significant issue for Garden City. As a commissioner, what do you think is the most effective or efficient tool to encourage housing development, and what would be your role in encouraging housing development?
the city has done a wonderful job to really inform businesses of the programs available. The first program that's available is the Rural Housing Incentive District, which the city encourages developers to apply for this, and recently we have 2 businesses with $2 million grants. That's awesome. My job is to ensure that we continue to advocate for businesses so that they have some way of, for example, we could give them a tax credit for them to build homes here. That would give them some sort of incentive to continue to build. Secondly, the housing crisis, affordable housing, sometimes is a simple game of supply and demand. As the more supply we have, the less the prices of homes become. Additionally, I want to ensure that our community, everyone here, recognizes all the different types of housing that's available. We can't just build a single-family home, and we can't just build a duplex home, but bringing perspectives such as a housing complex for more communities. But that housing complex ought to be supported by a community through active engagement, because we need to build a community within that housing complex. Thank you.
Deb?
I think that in order to work at getting those up to those 4,000 housing units built by 2030, we need to do kind of whatever it takes, as long as we can afford it. And as Tom said, looking at those, those housing, rural housing incentive districts, the moderate income district, the neighborhood revitalization program, looking at some of those tax credits and loans, but then also just being creative and thinking outside of the box, as you said, thinking about mixed-use developments where it's about making sure that we have apartments, townhouses, single-family homes, that we have a variety of price points as far as rent and as far as buying a home, making sure that people who live in Garden City and work in Garden City can afford to actually own a home or rent and it not impede their budget drastically. But I think making sure that we look at building codes as well, making sure that our codes are up to date so that for those developers and for those builders, that we're not getting in the way of ourselves for those developments. And also having those established relationships with developers, with landowners, so that when an opportunity arises, the city is in a good place to help them make their building dreams come true. Thank you.
Shannon?
Okay, so it's good, and I think we've kind of all touched on this a little bit. The first is why is this a topic? And one is because we've been successful as a community on attracting jobs. We've been really good, and Empirical's coming online in not too long. So we have the demand for that. And like we said, that increased demand has caused an increase in what the price for the houses are. So we're talking about why have our valuations or has the property tax collected increased? It's because of really a majority of that is just not having enough housing. So we really do need to address this. And traditionally, over the last 10, 15 years since we've had an RHID, that Rural Housing Incentive District, has been the way that we've been able to get any housing built. The one key thing that we need to keep in mind with RHIDs is that's not a partnership that just the city does, but the school district has to be on board with that, the community college has to be on board with that, the county has to be on board with that, all those taxing agencies have to be on board with that. So we need to make sure that we keep that plan in place and we are in good communications with our other partners on that key tool. Another thing that we've been looking at is increasing incentives for housing density. So if we're thinking about building a road or any of our infrastructure, if we put one house inside an area or we put 10 houses in an area, the infrastructure is basically the same. So if we can incentivize how many houses are getting put in the same amount of area, that means the infrastructure and the cost of the city is less. So working on density bonuses and being able to get more density in there, that does allow us to have 4plexes and 10plexes and apartments. With the ability for people to still go out and do sagebrush and all those other things is really one of those keys that we're going to be able to unlock the housing potential and need that we have.
Roy?
Yeah, it's one of the biggest issues, not only in Garden City, but across the state. I'm on the League of Kansas Municipalities boards, and the mayors and city commissioners from across the state of Kansas, that is the biggest issue in our state. Not only in our state, but in the nation as well. You hear it on the nightly news that there's not enough housing. kind of as the other commissioners stated, I mean, our goal was 4,000 housing units. And we keep spouting 4,000 housing units. How do we come up with that number? Well, actually, we came up with that number because of the chat study that we have, and it shows that we're behind and that we need almost 4,000 housing units to meet the demand of how our community is growing. And so we've kind of been, as I've been on the commission, we've tried different incentives, and the RHID has been one of the best ones. We've used Moderate Income Development Grant, the Neighborhood Revitalization Program that we use, but it's also going back to kind of what Commissioner Dick also mentioned is supporting the mixed-use development, expand affordable housing solutions throughout the community, and also developing housing in the downtown area as well. But making it all work and coming up with different ideas on how it would fit to meet those demands to hit that 4,000 mark by 2030. Thank you.
Bryce.
Housing is an incredibly important issue here in Garden City. As we talked about before, we need 4,000 housing units here in Garden City, and we are behind in this goal. So how do we increase this? One of the ways is just to get out to the community and inform them about these state programs. There is millions and millions of dollars in state grants and loans available that can help out this community in building more housing projects. For example, we just had recently a $2 million state grant for a housing project over by the theater. And with that housing project, it would be, I believe it is 60 housing units, and this is important. Not only do we need housing, we need affordable housing, and we need to look at the idea of building housing, not just houses, but apartment complexes, duplexes, quadplexes as well. Because when we build these houses, not only are we building these houses, we also have to build these roads, these sewage connections, these electric lines, and the water lines as well. So being able to build vertically would greatly help reduce those needs on those certain types of infrastructure. Thank you.
Deb, next question will start with you. Please explain your understanding of the Kansas Open Meetings Act and the Kansas Open Records Act, and are you willing to comply with those rules?
Yeah, the Kansas Open Meeting Act means that there are 5 commissioners, 5 city commissioners, and so a quorum or a majority would be 3. And so making sure that there are not 3 of us in a setting, and sometimes we get it right, sometimes we might see a third one come in the door, and so we have to make a decision as to, rock, paper, scissors, which one's going to leave. But making sure that there aren't 3 commissioners at a time, at a meeting. That's not a public meeting. Now, meaning that it's not been publicized at a commission meeting, that on the meetings of note. Because there are things that, like tomorrow, there is the KDOT Ike sessions, and so that's a public meeting. Chances are you'll see more than 3 commissioners. But we're very careful about making sure that we comply with that, because otherwise you're subject to getting in trouble and getting, not meeting that requirement. The Kansas Open Meeting Act and Open Record Act is the same, is that when a request comes in for records, that we comply with that, and making sure that that we're transparent with our public. And yes, I will comply with that to the best of my ability and ensure the community of that.
Shannon.
Well, just to make it so we're not just saying the same thing over, because I mean these are all just facts that you're saying. So I agree with everything that the mayor says, what it means for an open records and open meeting and making sure we're not all together. And it actually turns out, like when we do stuff for nonprofits, because the school district and we do have to make sure that we've done it, and we've done it multiple times. We're like, oh, it's 3 of us. We literally do rock, paper, scissors sometimes to see who the 2 that get to stay. We're not going to say which one's the winner. Is it the one who stays or which one goes? But but those sorts of things are really foundational to democracy. We can't operate as a city or as any level of elected officials and have secret meetings or hide behind any of the records. If that's the policy or that's the way that our commission or any commission works, it's not really a democracy anymore. We don't get to hear what's actually going on. That's why it's important to make sure when we do executive sessions, we make sure we're doing it for a specific reason. We keep it to the topic to that specific reason and make sure that everything else that doesn't fall inside that part is out in the open. And so that does mean that sometimes we do have to have conversations that are difficult, because it is hard to say sometimes what your opinions are when you're hearing everybody's first time's opinions about some of these issues. So, but again, it's important to follow those things. I mean, not just kind of important, vastly important to make sure that we have open records, open documents, or an open book. And I feel confident that we do a good job in that regard.
Roy?
Yeah, it's all about transparency in the government and serving the citizens' needs in a transparent manner. I always lose on rock, paper, scissors, so I'm usually the one that has to follow up and get notes from the meeting, but that's okay. We do serve, we are on a lot of committees in the community, so it is difficult at times when you serve on a large number of committees in the community, and there's 3 of us, it makes it difficult at times. But really what COMA and CORA are is having those transparencies in elected officials serving your community and understanding that they're serving it in the best manner possible without making any deals or things behind the scenes. And that's why they've got so many rules and regulations with COMA and CORA, because people have done that. And it really goes back to transparency, being transparent for the community and serving as an elected official in the community and being as transparent as possible. Thank you.
Bryce?
I will 100% follow both the Kansas Open Meetings Act and the Kansas Open Records Act. These are both incredibly important, not only for transparency, but also ensuring that our staff does not feel pressured by our commissioners as well. If you have more than 3 commissioners speaking together with a member of staff, that staff member might feel pressured. So it's important to make sure they are not pressured, that the government is open and transparent to everyone so that they understand what is going on, and also so that they can show up to these meetings, be heard at these meetings, and can partake as well. And so, yes, I 100% plan to follow them, especially because these are law. Thank you.
Tom?
My goal as a city commissioner is simply for us to continue growing together. How ought we to do that? The first is running city commission meetings with transparency and empathy. Transparency is really important for city government, because if we disobey the open meeting,
Tom, I don't
Hold
know if
on.
your mic's on. Sorry.
There you go.
if we disobey the Open Meeting Act, we undermine the authority, we undermine the structure, the unity of city commission. And what happens when that's undermined? We don't have a city at all. So I, as a citizen, and hopefully as a city commissioner, will and have to follow the Open Meeting Act and the Open Records Act. Additionally, transparency extends in our home life too, right? So not only does it extend to 3 or 2, but also in our professional life where there might be conflicts of interest. So we ought to really ask the opinions of the experts of our city manager, whether or not in certain meetings we might have some sort of conflict of interest, and take that into account. Thank you.
Shannon, we'll start the next question with you. Are there any ordinances that you believe need to be created, amended, or removed to make Garden City more business-friendly?
Wow, there's a lot of ordinances. So I'm going to have to answer this in a general thing, because I don't like trying to answer things like this off the fly without having. So in general, we're business friendly. There are some things. I mean, we just talked about it today at the meeting where we had a person wanting to do a mobile alcohol. I mean, basically a food truck, but with alcohol instead of food. And as it stands right now, we can't do that sort of thing. So any of those things that come up, I do think that we have a good job of saying, hey, what's going on here? What does the ordinance look like? Is this adopted or not? And then it's up to the 5 of us to decide if that's an ordinance that the city should adopt or not. I don't know of any specific ordinances that we have in place where I would just say, you know what, let's strike this, because if I felt that way, I think I already would have talked to the over the last 4 years, talked to Matt or the city staff and kind of figured out what's going on there. So I'm going to go with a very general, I think we're doing good and we just keep on review things as we go.
Roy?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I'm going to attack this in a different manner that we want to encourage development through increasing, well, let me start again, because I'm sitting here, ordinance, what?
Right.
Really, I want to encourage retail development, continue where we're at and where we're going. Encourage industrial development where we're at and continue to expand that. Through that, we have 150 acres of developable industrial property, and it's something that we kind of started, and it was kind of by not really a mistake, but something that we did that we thought, well, we'll buy this property, and then this industry actually just came and showed up, and we got industry. So we have kind of built on that. Retail, to continue to expand retail development throughout the community, really work to expand the downtown area and enhance that. We've got, in our budget, we have an incentive to help develop the downtown area. So I guess through budgeting processes and through goal setting, those are the ways to help increase our industry, retail, and entertainment sector to make Garden City a destination location. Thank you.
Bryce?
In order to know if there are any ordinances that need to be amended or removed, I think it's important that we go out to our community, to our businesses, and ask them. If there is an ordinance that is hurting our business community and preventing them from being able to flourish and to thrive here in Garden City, then we need to bring it to the commission, have discussion about it, and look to see, does this need to be amended or does it need to be just completely stricken from the ordinance? So I feel like that is the only way for us to be able to know what ordinances do need amended or removed. Currently, there's not any that I know of that do need amended or removed, but if any business has any sort of issue, I fully recommend to them to come to the commission and speak to the commission about what their issues are and bring them forward so that way we can better help our business leaders in this community.
Tom?
Ordinances that ought to be removed are those that prevent the businesses from being successful or from growing their business. Our city commission is pretty flexible. We have been fortunate enough, for example, at Flat Mountain Brew House, where they recently opened outdoor dining. That was an ordinance that was amended because having something like that is illegal. Additionally, how do we know if they should be amended? Is by interacting with our Chamber of Commerce. They have the best pulse of the priorities of businesses in town. Additionally, we ought to formulate a plan to gather as much information we can from business owners, not just your big business owners, but especially your small ones too. Once we have all of these ideas together, we can create a community that promotes business, not just for the quality of life for the business owners, but the quality of life of our citizens. Thank you.
Deb?
I think the biggest way that we can make Garden City more business-friendly, and that is to protect home rule. That is to allow our local officials to be able to govern and make decisions that are right here in Garden City and that are good for Garden City. And I think that by having those relationships, working with our state and national officials, and just making sure that they understand what protecting home rule means. But then also being creative with allowing different things. We talked about the Downtown Development Fund, because I think that it's important to make sure that our downtown is just as viable business-wise as it is out at Shulman Crossing or any of the other new developments. Making sure that small businesses and large businesses have the same opportunities, and that we do encourage people to open up those small businesses, but at the same time, attracting those large businesses to locate here as well. And I agree, making sure that we are constantly talking to and visiting with our business community to see what things need to be in place to help them and their business, and working together with them to ensure that we are and continue to be a business-friendly community.
Roy, next question, we'll start with you.
Okay.
What do you see as the city's role in improving the health of the people of Garden City?
So we have a rec commission that does a lot of programming in our community, and that helps to encourage health across the community. We've also invested heavily in trails and in creating biking pathways in our community, and we're looking at expanding our parks throughout the community, especially in the new developments that we've got for our housing developments. So all of those things, and one of the greatest things, as I was driving here tonight, was the new skate park. There was probably 30 kids and a couple of parents there having a great time at that skate park. So creating those types of things in our community creates a quality of life issue, and promoting health and wellness throughout the community. And it's having those types of things that incentivizes people to get out and move and be active. So I think that's where I'm at on that. Thank you.
Bryce.
I think health is very important to our city. It's through a nice, healthy community that we can have a good, strong, vibrant workforce and a great community. Some of the issues would be like clean water. We need to ensure that water is here to stay in Western Kansas. Without the water, we can't have any community here. So ensuring that is viable. Also, we need to look towards our parks, and not only just creating parks where they cost money through the city, but also looking towards outside programs as well, looking towards federal programs to help incentivize people to get active and to build these parks, these trails, these bike lanes, etc., stuff like that. We need to look towards federal grants and loans. We need to also look towards state opportunities as well, because I know these projects, they are great and they are needed, but they can also be a big burden on the taxpayer as well. So sometimes it gets hard to explain to a member of the community, hey, this park is going to cost hundreds of thousands of dollars, but it's an easier sell to the community if you say, hey, this park will cost hundreds of thousands, but we have a grant or we have a loan from the federal government or the state government saying they will cover a large chunk of this. So, thank you.
Tom.
The city's role, they are the main provider of healthcare in our community. So first the question we have to ask is, what is health? Health requires mental and physical strength. A healthy community is a thriving community. And we need, first, in terms of mental health, is Live Well Finney County Coalition is doing such a fantastic job of applying for AFAC funds to ensuring that our community has the resources they need to ensure that our students and our older people are healthy. Additionally, St. Catherine's Hospital is struggling to have a healthcare infrastructure that will provide us with cardiologists, rheumatologists, because my dad had a stroke in January this year, and we have to go to Colorado every time he has an appointment, or we have to go to Hutchinson every time he has an appointment. So we ought to really partner with St. Catherine's to see how we can bridge this gap to allow more health professionals to work here in town. Additionally, we ought to promote 988, the suicide hotline, because the young people of this generation are struggling, and we ought to provide everything we can because they are the future of our community. Thank you.
Deb.
Before I became a city commissioner, I actually served on the Recreation Commission, and I was the chair of that for one of those years. And we really worked hard at making sure that we maintain that quality of life, because your job can bring you to Garden City, but if there isn't anything for families to do, especially families that have children, then the chances are they're going to move away. And so making sure that there's a strong quality of life, making sure that our city is a walkable city, making sure that our sidewalks are in good order, making sure that we have adequate trails, not just for walking, but for biking, making sure that we have plenty of green space, especially with all of the new developments that are happening, making sure that that those green spaces are developed to encourage people to be outside and off those tablets and to, be together as a family. We also need to make sure that things like Garden Rapids, when we were, as a commission, looking at setting the price for that, we wanted to make sure that it was affordable, not just for one person, but if you had a family and you had children, to make sure that it was an affordable option. And so that's something that we were very careful about setting. But also making sure that this is a community, to Tom's point, that attracts quality healthcare providers so that people don't have to go out of town for some of those specialty things. All of those are combined to make sure that we can provide the best quality of life possible.
Shannon.
Thanks. Before I started on the city commission, I was on the board for Live Well Finney County, so I agree with Tom with the amazing work that they do for our community. Really a good resource. And kind of like what we've said, there's a lot of different aspects to what health means. There's basic needs, like making sure we have a clean water system, free from all that stuff, making sure our sewer is taken care of, electric. Then another aspect of the health of a city is the built environment, like we talked about, with the skate parks and the sidewalks and those sorts of things. We also address the health of the community through programming, through like the rec that we do with sports and yoga and movies, free movie nights at Stevens Park. Something else that really directly impacts our health is how we fund our police and our fire. With the fire, I mean, they're directly in the way of helping our community in times of need. And especially when we're talking about police, some of that is, one, making sure they have the right equipment, but two, also having preventative measures where people aren't having their first encounter with the police is on the negative side of things. And that helps with overall community health as well. Also, supporting quality of life, like we've said, making sure that we have things like social spaces, and part of that is things like doing the parklet in front of Flat Mountain, or allowing Hidden Trail to operate their thing, and allowing people to get together and have those informal meetings. That's also really important for mental health. And then finally, making sure we address the roads, because when we're talking about hospital access, it's not just important for us to be able to get out to hospital access, but also for our community to get into Garden City to the care that they need.
Bryce, we'll start with you on this question. What do you see as the commission's role in ensuring affordable access to utilities throughout the community?
I think the city's commission's role here is huge. Affordable utilities are incredibly important for our community. Without affordable utilities, people won't come here to Garden City to make it this place home. We can talk about all the job openings that Garden City has, but if utilities are not affordable, people will not come here. And right now, I think we're doing an incredible job with our utilities. We need to continue to make sure that utilities stay affordable for people. We need to ensure that we still have water for the future, and we need to continue to support programs with that. We also need to make sure that electricity for everyone is affordable, and that we have, not only is it affordable, but we have constant electricity for everyone. You hear about these other communities in like Texas and those areas where they have power outages. I'm fortunate to live in an area here in Garden City where I don't think I've ever had something like that occur here. So we need to continue to improve continue to contribute to our infrastructure, to our utilities, to make sure that we still will always have affordable electricity, affordable water, and everything like that. Thank you.
Tom.
The city commission ought to be transparent. We ought to see exactly on our utility bill what charges go in, and I think our offices, our services, they do such a great job of comparing our uses from this year and last year. Unfortunately, inflation, things that are beyond the city's control, it makes it difficult for utilities to be affordable sometimes. That's just how it is. But what we can do is ensure that we aren't buying and outsourcing our electricity. So the city has a great plan to ensure that we are dependent within our city for electricity, for water, et cetera, instead of having to depend on sunflower, et cetera. But dependency also includes dependability. We are so fortunate to live in a community where electricity is dependable. And if I can't advocate for anything more affordable, it is dependability. Additionally, what causes our utility bills to be expensive? It might be the light that's in your garage that you forgot to turn on. It might be the phantom charger that you had on all year long. So the city ought to also inform ways for us, our citizens, to save and reduce our use of electricity so that our bill isn't unnecessarily high. Thank you.
Deb?
I think one of the biggest ways of ensuring affordable access is making sure that as a commission we're monitoring those rates. We have a very good Director of Public Works who is very transparent with us about what those electric rates are and if he thinks that they need to be adjusted. We're also part of the Southwest Power Pool because we have Jameson Electric, so we can actually generate our own power when we are called upon by the Southwest Power Pool. One of the things that I was really proud of with the city was during that weather event where it got really cold and all of a sudden we didn't have access to natural gas to be able to monitor, to generate electricity. Luckily, the city had enough reserves so that we could take care of those needs immediately and not have a brownout or not have the rolling blackouts because of all of the forward thinking that we do. And I think that's important for keeping those rates affordable too, is, looking at ways to save money. If you look at your electric bill from the city, you can see your usage and it kind of gives a year-to-date, not just for electricity, but also for water. And you can see exactly what your use is so that you have that option, to maybe make some of those changes. But then, looking at some of the programs that we have with like WaterSense, irrigation systems, and the rebate programs that we have to help people lower their water use.
Shannon?
Yeah, I'm going to start with that because that's what's going to make sure that people know is one of those ways that we can as a commission, and we have as a commission, is set up those programs to do things like the rebate program for a sprinkler. So if you do a WaterSense sprinkler, you can get a rebate with the city to do that. And personally, that made a big difference in my water bill because you can see how much it reduces. So we have programs like that in place. What's our role as a commission? We are paramount to that. I mean, that's one of those things that when we're talking about it, we listen to the process that's going on with the utilities, with what Mike says is coming up. But then when it comes down to it, it says these are the things that we need to do, and these are the things that we need to achieve, and these are the reserve funds that we really would like to hit to make sure we're safe for things like those weather events. It comes down to us saying what would we like to see those rates be set at. So it really is an important role for the city commission to do. I've felt like we've done a good job with this. When we talk to the industry coming into town, looking at our water rates, looking at our utility rates, they're very competitive with other communities. And part of that is the partnership that we have with KMEA, where we were able to go and pursue the power that we need at a reduced rate. So we were able to save our customers millions of dollars over the years that we've been doing that. So we do things like that. And then through that partnership, we also get to work with other utilities in that KMEA group to be able to reduce like purchasing power and stuff like that.
Roy?
So when I first started on the commission, we had the daunting task to look at the electric rates that were being brought before us, that they were going to increase 6% every year for the next 6 years. That's a 36% increase. So we asked staff to look at ways to try to reduce or mitigate that. And they brought to us moving away from the one electric utility that we had, that we were using, to go to the Kansas Municipal Energy Association. And through that, we saved almost $4 million that year, and we've saved that amount through the last 12 years that I've been on the commission. Through that, we've actually through that, we've tied into the main power line and grid, which helped us during the rolling blackouts that you've seen. We as a city staff and commission made the hard decision to keep the electricity on during that time. That took a $10 million hit to our financial reserves in the utilities to do that. But we made that decision, and it was a good decision for us. My time's up, so he was showing me stuff. Sorry.
Tom, next question will start with you. There has been a tremendous commercial growth that the city has been a key stakeholder in bringing to Garden City and Finney County. What role do you believe the city should have to incentivize the retention of existing businesses throughout the entire city?
The biggest thing is information. First, I think the city has the role to provide data to these businesses and also provide them with certain tax credits to get them to have more data, right? They make decisions based on data because where the money is where they're going to be. But also, we have to advocate for things that in our community that we might need. For example, if Famous Footwear is the only shoe store in town and they end up just wanting to leave, we ought to inform them that there are really important stakeholders that rely on their services. Secondly, the City Commission has a very important role to maintain communication with all these businesses. How ought we to do that? Is having monthly, quarterly, yearly checkups with them together so that we can ensure what they need to stay here, how we can help them, and more importantly, how can we work with the Chamber of Commerce to continue to build on our success? We've had such a great foundation of economic growth, so we need everyone's help to ensure that we continue to build on that.
Deb?
Every time a business closes in Garden City, there's a loss. There's a loss not just to that business owner, but to the customers and to the overall community. And most of the time, it's because, you have so many things that happen, for that. But I always look at it as kind of a failure a little bit because maybe if we would have just communicated with that person a little bit more, or if we would have, been able to work together to maybe make some changes along the way, I think those things are important. I know when I talk about downtown, using the funds from what we have approved in the budget is the Downtown Development Fund. And we've had that program in the past, and it was a great program. A lot of people took advantage of it. They were able to use it for some facade repairs, some changes. I know like Brown Shoe Fit was able to use it for their doors, and a lot of people took advantage of that. And it was not a loan, it was a grant, and it was available to them, and they could use that. And I think that making sure that we've got programs not just for new businesses, but for existing, I think it's important to retain those small businesses, but also those existing businesses. And yes, working and making sure that economic development and the chamber, that they visit with them and help them through it too.
Shannon?
So yeah, like Mayor said, downtown development and the Downtown Development Fund is a really big key when we can get funds to go directly in a grant or matching grant sort of way, so those dollars go far. The city is also a major funder, or the major funder of Downtown Vision, so a specific organization to promote downtown, and not just Main Street downtown, but downtown is a pretty large area, includes 8th Street and places like that. Other tools that are available to anybody who would like to be renovating or building up their business is NRP, where you do get a rebate on your taxes if you do upgrade your business. So that's a way where we can have businesses, no matter where you are, taking advantage of that and growing. Another thing for the city is to make sure that we're intentional in continue to put infrastructure and amenities across town, and don't just focus all of our new things out on the east east side of town where Shulman Crossing is. So that's one of the reasons, one of the good things is like the skate park. Putting that over on the west side of town, that helps keep each of these neighborhoods going and being attractive to locate there. Also, what's important is tools, again, that's available to everybody, like TIFs or CIDs, which helps us also with it. So TIF is helping build infrastructure for retail projects, and CIDs is a extra fund that a retailer can request that has to be approved through the commission, but then that can go into paying for renovations of that building as well.
Roy?
So building off of that, it really goes back to what we've been discussing is housing. Housing is very important to, visiting with a lot of different retailers in the community, and that's one of the biggest issues. And actually attracting people to the community, businesses to the community, because it's kind of the chicken and the egg. You get the people here, but where do you house them? And that's, so housing is one of our bigger issues on keeping industry and retail development in our community. Don't want to reiterate, but the Downtown Development Fund was something that we started back a number of years ago to help enhance that part of the area, because downtown is really the heart of the community. If you have a strong, vital downtown, you have a strong community economically. We work with the Finney County Economic Development Corporation, the Chamber of Commerce, Downtown Vision, to help attract and retain businesses in our community. And also going back to, we talked about ordinances. We had the liquor stores in the community come to us talking about, because I just thought about that, coming to us because we had to change the ordinance because of the holidays and everything. So yes, using ordinances and changing those to help retain and attract businesses to our community as well. So all of those are trying to keep businesses alive and well in our community. Thank you.
Bryce?
So I believe the City Commission plays an incredibly important role to incentivize the retention of local businesses throughout the entire city. So what do we do to be able to ensure that these local businesses stay here? We talk with the community, and we make sure that their needs, what they need to be able to flourish and grow in Garden City, are met. So I have personally gone out and spoken with multiple business leaders, asking them, what are some of the issues you guys have? And some of the issues are employment. Here in Garden City, we have incredibly low unemployment rate, which is great for everyone wanting to go get a job, but it really does hurt the local businesses trying to find people to come to this community. Also, one of the key issues that local businesses keep harping to me is taxes. Taxes are too high for these businesses to be able to grow and flourish. With high taxes, it prevents them from being able to grow. It prevents them from being able to hire new employees, to be able to look to expand. And so one of the things with the City Commission, we just need to look to lower these property taxes for these local business leaders so that they can grow and that they are incentivized to stay here and not go move to a different city, to a different community. Instead, stay at Garden City where they've called home and continue to call it home.
Thank you. Final question round. Deb, we'll start with you. Do you believe a code of conduct or commission standards would be appropriate for the commission to implement? If so, what do you believe should be in those standards, and what should the repercussions be for violating those standards? And are you willing to follow through with those repercussions?
I think a code of standards is important. I know it's something that we've actually talked about as a commission. Because first, we are beholden to the voters in Garden City, to the people who elected us to sit in these chairs. And if somebody violates that code of conduct, then I think that there definitely need to be things in place that would address that. Now, I know that the only way to remove an elected official is through a recall election. But I also feel as though, as a commission, being able to just have a set of guidelines that would help them sort of work through that process I think is important. And yes, if there was a code of conduct, then I would definitely follow it, because I think that integrity is the biggest thing that we have as commissioners. And if you break that integrity, you also impact our ability to function as a commission and govern. And a lot of times that can get in the way, and it takes away from our business, because now we're spending time on that. But I think having that clear set of guidelines would be very beneficial to be able to help us through that. And yes, I would support that.
Shannon, excuse me.
Yeah, like Mayor said, I think that having a code of conduct and standards, one, there's a kind of a way that's kind of been working and going, but having it as an actual thing, I think there would be definite positives to it. It's kind of like you said, it really shows what's expected and not expected of a commissioner. So those would be a good idea, and of course, if it was in place, I'd follow through it. Part of it, what we need to keep in mind, like Mayor said, is when we're talking about removing somebody from an office, a code of conduct wouldn't be something that would still need to come through the public. We don't want to have one or a cadre of commissioners being able to override the will of the public, and that's why you would need to still have the have that recall for your elected official there. So there would be some limits onto what that code of conduct could do, but as a general idea, it is a good idea to have those, so that we do have those boundaries of what's expected of us.
Roy.
You know, we talked about transparency and Comer Cora, and, you know, I see as a commission, there's kind of the unwritten rules that we have as city commissioners that we do follow, but then there probably should be a set of standards that we do approve and appoint as commissioners that will follow certain rules. Again, like the other commissioners have noted, it's hard to remove a commissioner. You have to do it through a special election. If that's the decision of the community and that's where they need to go, they can bring that forward as a petition. But there, in our code of conduct, we could have rules to censure the commissioner if need be. But again, it's something that we probably need to look at and work on. But there are a number of rules and regulations and state laws that we do have to follow as commissioners when you are sworn into office. So, but we can look at it as a commission if that's the direction that the community wants to go. Thank you.
Bryce.
I think this is definitely something that the commission should look into, possibly adding, and also to discuss. I understand there are unwritten rules, but it's nice to have those unwritten rules actually written down so the community knows what standards their commissioners are being held to. And also, if those standards that are discussed and they're made actual standards and written down, if they are violated, I think at the very least, the community should be told and informed that their commissioner has violated these rules. Sure, we might not be able to have them removed from commissioners since it is an elected process. The community should at least know, hey, our commissioner violated this part of our standards, whether it be a standard that we add for if someone is found guilty of something like a high-level felony or any sort of something like that as well. It needs to be told to the community so that way they understand, hey, our commissioner's broken this rule. We can't remove them, but we want you to know for future elections that they violated our code of conduct, so that way they're informed and they know for the future. Because I know people don't just look into the police report or anything like that to make sure, they'll sit there and go, okay, is this commissioner, did they violate the law today? No, they didn't. Did this commissioner violate it today? No, they didn't. But they should be known and informed, hey, if they do violate it, they need to be informed and told to the community, so that way they can vote.
Tom.
A code of conduct is so necessary. What is the purpose of code of conduct? For strong moral character, and this is extremely important for the unity and integrity of a city's leaders. The strength of a city is dependent on the strength of its city leaders. Additionally, in the Code of Conduct, the first and foremost on there is all city commissioners must obey the law. They're a public servant, and that's what they ought to do. Additionally, he or she should recognize their conflict of interest in their personal and professional matters. And if they can't recognize this, we must have some sort of committee, some sort of board, which brings us to their attention, saying, hey, I think you were getting a little too deep with this or with that. Lastly, what are the repercussions? What happens when someone breaks the Code of Conduct? Just like a student in a school, they have a code of conduct. Just like an educator, they have a code of conduct. Why not your public servants? The code of conduct for a student, what happens right away? They're expelled. Although it's difficult for us, their strong moral character needs to be put into play in which we encourage them, hey, you ought to resign. You ought to maintain the integrity of our city. Thank you.
That concludes the question and answer session of tonight's forum. Candidates, take a deep breath. We're almost done. The hard part's over. We thank you again for your time and willingness to be a part of this event. And at this time, we will invite each candidate to provide a... Do I have to stop? A 1 minute, a 1 minute closing statement. We will begin with Shannon. Oh, just 1 second. Shannon.
Okay. Well, thank you for the opportunity to come and be a part of this process. And for the 4 years of service that I've already done, I've really enjoyed my time, and I look forward to another 2 or 4 years, depending on how the election goes. I just want to point out, and I don't like making closing statements that look at me. Look at the community that we have. I mean, look at how other communities act, and look at how our community acts. I'm proud of where we are and where we've been and where we're going. We're going to, no matter what happens in this election for this city commission, we're going to have good people. We don't have to worry about that. And that's not something that we have to, that other communities really have in going for them. We really do have good people in place as commissioners in our city. We are going to continue to grow. We need to continue to grow. It doesn't happen by chance. It happens by purpose. I hope that you do vote for me, but I know that no matter what we do in the end of November, we'll still be good.
Roy.
First I want to thank God for through him all things are possible. Then I really want to thank my family for the time that they have given so I could serve on the city commission. I want to thank the great city staff that we have for all that they do to make our community a great place to live, work, and raise a family. Every day they get up and do an outstanding job to make our community really great. So I want to thank them for that. And then I just want to thank the voters for giving me the last 12 years to serve as a city commissioner. And I just ask for your vote on November 7th. Thank you.
Bryce.
I just want to first thank the Chamber for putting on this wonderful event. Events like these are what helps our democracy flourish. I want to thank everyone who has come here today to this event to be able to be more informed about the City Commission. And I also want to thank everyone who is at home watching this online through Facebook. I think I have made it clear what my positions are on these issues, but if you guys have any questions at all, I have a Facebook page, and it's wonderful with technology. You just have to message, and I can message you right back, and we can talk and discuss these issues. Feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be sure to reach out back to you. Thank you.
Tom.
Thank you again to the Chamber of Commerce for the privilege of being up here. On November 7th, we, you and I, have a very important choice to make. Who we vote for dictates your future, my future, the future of your children and your grandchildren. So please, I encourage you to consider a fresh face, me. Someone with fresh legs who has so much zeal and passion, not for politics, but for sharing love to others by serving them. I am simply asking a seat at the table, at this table. a table that should represent our diverse community, especially the young voices who are more important now than ever before. I am Tom Wynn, and I love Garden City.
Deb?
Well, again, thanks. I'd like to thank the Chamber for hosting this forum. I do also believe that, these are the events, and I love seeing all of the people in the audience because you are our voters, and you are, really striving to be informed citizens. And if there's a question that I haven't answered, or that you'd like to speak a little bit more, you can get a hold of me. It's easy to find me. I'm usually, at home, or, you can call me on the phone. But I've enjoyed serving the last 4 years as a commissioner. It's something that I never thought I would see myself doing, but I've enjoyed it. I've had a lot of good feedback. I've had a lot of feedback saying you need to do better. And I think that's okay, because that's how we learn and that's how we grow. And I would really like to have your vote as well. But again, we have some great candidates, and I think our city is in good hands. And I promise you that if I get elected, I will continue doing the job that I've been doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes tonight's program. Please join me again in thanking our candidates for their time. Please join us on Thursday for the USD 457 Board of Education Forum. As a reminder, due to some technical issues, that event will take place here in the City Commission chambers beginning at 6 p.m., and the forum will be streamed on the city's Facebook page. Also, as reminders, the general election is set for Tuesday, November 7th, and voter registration deadline is October 17th. Early in-person voting, if you can't make it on November 7th, begins October 23rd, with the county clerk allowing for extended evening and Saturday times beginning October 26, 2023. So no excuse to be able to not vote. There's going to be plenty of times to do it. We encourage the citizens of Garden City and Finney County to vote. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Pass this over to Roy. Come right to my side.
Here you go. It's a present for you.
And saw there was a great position with the city and applied and was able to move to Southwest Kansas, and I'm excited to work